Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Instances of far-left extremism are linked to psychopathic tendencies and narcissism, according to a new peer-reviewed quantitative study published in the journal Current Psychology. What's been obvious to all of us from the beginning can now be punctuated with the obnoxious leftist addendum of scientists say. Naturally, as post-millennial journalist Andy No points out on Twitter, radical left-wing movements often attract people suffering from mental health issues and encourage them to be violent, to act on it. For this reason, it's not surprising to researchers at the University of Bern in Switzerland found many far-left activists don't really support specific social causes and instead want to satisfy their own ego-related needs through a process known as the dark ego vehicle principle. This principle suggests violent forms of activism give individuals with dark personality traits such as narcissism opportunities to display their perceived sense of moral superiority over the rest of us. Political affiliation is still an important factor in who participates in left-wing protests. However, the study finds some participants will join leftist movements primarily to demonstrate their ability to force their beliefs on fellow citizens. Unfortunately, one can easily find real-world examples of dangerous criminals trying to force those around them to buy into left-wing ideologies here all over the West. For instance, a UK man named Clive Bundy, not to be confused with the freedom-loving ranchers from Nevada, because this Clive Bundy is a criminal sex offender who repeatedly raped his own daughter for 9 years during her childhood. Now he wants people to believe he's a woman. Bundy was arrested back in 2016 and was sentenced to 15 years in prison after police found images of child sexual abuse on his laptop. But he only served about half the sentence and was released a few weeks ago. Before he left prison, he changed his name to Claire Fox, which also happens to be the name of a prominent UK legislator in the House of Lords who argues the transgender movement threatens free speech. It's unclear if this was a personal dig at Fox, though it likely was, but this name change does allow him to hide behind the mainstream attention going to this UK Parliament official online. Of course, a problem arises because Bundy's old name is on the country's official sex offenders list. And as you'd imagine, the man's daughter, Sarah Lee, a 24-year-old woman with a young child of her own and who's trained to become a paramedic, wants the two names to be linked online out of fear for herself and for other potential victims. However, current UK law appears to show Claire Fox is almost considered to be a new person, giving this criminal the opportunity to hide his old ways and to assume a new life as a victim, no matter how shocking it is to his friends and family, none of whom believe him or expected a macho man like Bundy to change his identity. Now, Sarah Lee is working to ensure her father's gender transition won't put other women at risk, and she's already being criticized for her efforts by some activists who call her, yes, of course, transphobic. Therein lies the issue. No one's allowed to be critical of the secular West's new religion. Anyone who dares to challenge the leftist dogma must be shamed and deprogrammed from their current belief system in Mao-like struggle sessions. We see this happening right now in the U.S. on Major League Baseball fields of all places. According to a new article from The Federalist by David Harsanyi, a pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays is apologizing for sharing a post on his social media profile that promoted boycotts against companies like Target and the owner of Bud Light. First, he said his actions hurt the Pride community. Then he said he's committed to better educating himself on such matters moving forward. But we all know education in this context really means ideological indoctrination. It really is sad to see a grown man broken like this to save his career. At least Dodgers relief pitcher Blake Trinan appears to be standing strong after having given this letter to a member of Turning Point USA to release to the public. In it, he explains his disappointment in his team honoring the drag troupe the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, saying that their work is blasphemous and openly displays hatred of Catholics and other Christians. He goes on to say that he understands that playing baseball is a privilege and not a right, but that his convictions in Jesus Christ will always come first. He then concludes with two verses, biblical verses, one from Galatians and the other from the book of Joshua, in which it says, "Do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows, and that as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Join us now to discuss all this and more is Ian Howarth, the host of Off Limits with Ian Howarth. Ian, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks as always for having me.
Great. So do you think these MLB struggle sessions, because that's what they are because baseball is one of the last somewhat conservative sports left, whereas basketball and football have been on the woke train for a while now?
Yeah, I think this is just the latest sport to really fold to the woke agenda. You've got, if you actually look at most athletes, a lot of them are conservative because sport is a meritocracy. You can't exactly have affirmative action in sport. You're either good at it or you're not. And so a lot of athletes are actually conservative. A lot of people think they can speak out. They can privately. But I think a lot of the times, a lot of these athletes are realizing that they simply have to adhere to a woke agenda now.